Welcome to Trekommendations. Each week, a guest beams in to help us by recommending something worthy of our consideration from the almost 60 years of Star Trek content. And this week, we have the wonderful Sam from UK Space Command. Apparently, that is a real thing. Welcome, Sam.
Okay, Jason, good to be here.
Yes. No follow-up questions on Space Command.
Maybe one or two. Yeah, UK Space Command, not made up, does exist, is real.
Not made up, does exist. It's real.
Not just in my
Yeah.
head.
And I think some people might have seen you at a con. You were doing a panel. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've done a couple. So I've done a couple of talks at Destination Trek and things like that. So I've done two now. So I did a talk on UK Space Command, and I also did a talk on artificial intelligence and how it impacts leadership and things like that. So yes, a couple of my hobbies.
Excellent. Wow. Yeah. So like real Star Trek, deep Star Trek here. Okay. Oh, and I think I might have been told by somebody what maybe your favorite episode of TNG is. So it might make sense, but that's an off-air chat. We'll talk about that later.
Okay. All right.
But
I look forward to that, honestly.
we know you're from Space Command. We know you like Star Trek, but we need to calibrate you a little bit more. So at this point of the show, we always like to ask some calibration questions. For all of these questions, we're just going to pretend you're a captain of a ship because they're going to kind of fit a bit of a theme this time. So, as captain, obviously you need to have your captain's chair. So my question for you is, which is the best captain's chair / bridge design in Star Trek?
Well, I mean, you got the classics, haven't you? And you can almost cheat because obviously, I can cheat a little bit and say like the NX-01 chair from season 4 onwards, which was also Picard's chair at the end of Nemesis, is a great sort of double up one, and it does look comfy, like you probably sort of sink into it. But I think for bridge design, I love the Defiant.
Right.
Like it's that small sort of compact thing, everything sort of viewable from the chair, and then you've got Cisco with the two panels off to the side, so you get the impression like he's a bit more hands-on with what's happening with the ship. So with a smaller crew, you can sort of have that, I think. But yeah, Archer and Picard's chair, because it's the same one on the bridge of the Defiant, I'd be pretty happy.
Nice, yeah. So you're like, I keep the screens. Can we just change the the seat in between? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Very hands-on, a bit
micromanaging
this captain. That's interesting. Which leads nicely into my follow-up question of who would you choose to be your first officer?
Yeah, good question. You want someone who can I always like someone who's going to argue with me a little bit and sort of challenge me quite a lot. And I don't know, I kind of think I kind of automatically leaning towards Spock as like the standard sort of he will keep you on the straight and narrow. But there's a part of me that's sort of leaning towards Data. I mean, probably quite similar characters, but I think Data, with the ability to like compete everything, he's got all the information to hand straight away. He'd be able to push everything, and he would quote regulations like no business. Like he'd keep on the straight and narrow quite happily. So I think Data as first officer would be a pretty good thing.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good answer. I like it. Final question, a bit of a curveball, this one. So now, obviously, your ship, your crew, you need a uniform. So you can take elements from any that you like, but how would you define or design the best Starfleet uniform?
Right. So I do like the Enterprise jumpsuits because pockets. It is a proper working sort of. We're going to get down and dirty. You've got everything to hand. You're constantly able to secure things away. But I'm a bit of a sucker for the First Contact / Deep Space Nine uniform with the grey shouldering.
Yes.
I think it looks proper tactical. So I'm going to add a couple of pockets into that one and zips. I think you've got a good answer there.
What Delta and Com badge sort of design are you sticking on it?
So I'm going controversial for this one because I think my favourite one is actually the All Good Things Future variant Com badge.
Right.
So it's got the slightly bigger sort of gold backing that's split into two, and it's almost like the Picard sort of season 1, 2, 3 Delta, but slightly bigger with gold. But there's something about that one I just really like. So yeah, I'm going for the All Good Things combat.
Nice. Yeah, some of the ones that just show up for like an episode are really. I like the one with the rank insignia behind it as well, when Riker's captain and
Oh,
Data's,
in
and that's just in his mind, right?
Future and
Yeah.
Perfect ones. It's quite a clever one, isn't it? You know, everything's combined together. They kind of feel sorry for the ensigns who just got the tiny little bar.
Yeah.
Like, what do you? Yeah, you got to have some motivation to promote
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, imagine Harry Kim with that. 7 years on Voyager.
Just being rubbed in for 7 years. Like, oh, you know.
And everyone that you meet asks, well, how come his has only got one and you've got 4? This is just how it works.
Why is it
It's funny you mentioned the overall. So I was on a long drive today with my wife, and I was discussing these questions. I was thinking them up. She's not a fan of the jumpsuits, the kind of overalls.
really?
No, and I said, well, they're practical. They've got lots of pockets. And her reply was, you can put pockets on trousers and a top. You don't need it to be an all-in-one jumpsuit.
I think you need multiple pockets. Like the almost like the all-in-one jumpsuit though. I do like it because it sort of bridges like the now to the future, and it's like the astronaut sort of thing. I think it's for Enterprise. It's a great look. But yeah, all those pockets on the outside on your sleeves. I'm a sucker for a pocket. Like, more pockets, the better.
Her answer was like, "Oh, and when you have to go to the toilet, that's the problem." And no, it was two things. It was, if you have to go to the toilet, and she said, and also if you get it dirty, you have to change the whole thing. Whereas if you just got your top dirty, you could just change your top, or just got the trousers. She's a very practical woman. She's.
I mean, yeah, she's thought this through far more than I have. Like, so it's got some good answers there.
Anyway, I feel like we are well and truly calibrated. I look forward to seeing the adventures of your ship and your crew and your snazzy uniforms. So that's really nice. But now is the time. So we're here primarily to hear your Trekommendation. So I'm very excited to point you towards the clock that is on the screen. That's right. To start, we have 1 minute or 60 seconds or less, if you like. Could you please tell us your Trekommendation, what it is, and why you've brought it to the show?
So I'm going to recommend the Star Trek Destiny novels. So we've had a couple of people on already to talk about some of the relaunch books. Star Trek Destiny is the Avengers Endgame of the relaunch novels. So it's set about 16 months after Nemesis, follows, it deals with a Borg invasion where the Borg aren't coming to assimilate, they're coming to eradicate, and they're bringing not just one cube, but all of them. And you've got Captain Picard trying to deal with it in the Alpha Quadrant, working out where the Borg are coming from. They're just appearing from behind Federation space. You've got the USS Titan with Riker out in the Beta Quadrant, examining a bit of a mystery out there with some spectrating signals. And finally, you've got Captain Dax on the Aventine, investigating the mystery of the wreckage of the Columbia NX-02 out in the Gamma Quadrant, so many, many light years from home. And it all comes crashing together as the Borg threaten the Federation.
I mean, the timing was absolutely perfect.
No one knows what's going on in the books, but great timing.
No. The other thing, personally, for me, as someone who has to not only edit this later, but also make a thumbnail, and I like to kind of add a catchy, phrase, having the Avengers Endgame of Star Trek.
That's perfect. Nick another franchise and shove it in.
So that's great. I mean, I'm already annoyed because I think it's another series of books I have to
read. Yeah, I mean, speaking of being purely biased, you won't regret this one. I remember when I first found it, it was like the first of the relaunch. No, that's not strictly true. I read some of them, but not many of them. And this is one I just picked up. It does a great job of like filling in some of the gaps around it, but it's eminently readable.
Yeah,
like it is very easy to get to grips with.
How many? So it's a book series.
Book series, yeah.
How many books is it?
3.
Okay.
So it's a trilogy.
Okay.
All written by the same author. So David Mack, who's well up there, it came out in 2008. And there's book 1, Gods of Night, book 2, Mere Mortals, and book 3, Lost Souls.
Right. Okay.
Very difficult to find in charity shops or anything like that because the moment they appear, they get snatched up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So eBay automatic search is going to start running now. No, 3 books is manageable. The Full Circle series by Kirsten Beyer is like 10 books. So that's
Yeah,
that's a lot more.
I've read them, and I'm going to sort of damage your bank account even more because Destiny is such a sort of pivotal Avengers Endgame moment that a lot of the full circle stuff spins out directly from the events of Destiny.
Yeah, I already
So
feel like I'm going to
you're
have to
going to
press
have
pause on what I was reading, go
there's a
back to
lot of it
ADs,
that comes out.
and come back to it because I did feel a bit. Um, Starting the books, it was a bit like, whoa, where are we? There's just
What
so much is
happens?
going on,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I do remember seeing, and I actually rewatched the finale of Voyager just to be like, just to make sure I remember how we all sort of got back to Earth and where we were, and then I was like,
yeah,
okay, still doesn't mention like explain any of this, so I don't know what's going on here.
no,
And I realized there were, I
yeah.
think, 3 other Voyager books before that series. But if I'm already
I
committing to
think there were
reading 10, I don't want to read 13. That's that's too many.
you can skip the first two wrong. I think there are four Voyager books before then.
Right.
So there's two that deal directly with them coming home, two that are about Captain Chakotay and Voyager in the Alpha Quadrant. Then you kind of have to read the Next Generation relaunch novel Resistance, then Destiny, and then you're all set up for Full Circle.
Okay. That's all I've got to do? Wow. No
Yeah,
problem. Well,
that's all easy.
easy.
Just take a week off,
Yeah.
so lock yourself in.
Yeah.
But one of the nice things about Destiny is that David Mack does a really good job of like saying, well, this is what's happened so far, and sometimes it can get a little bit um, too explainy, where he's sort of saying like, this is what's happened.
Right.
But if you're coming at it fresh, it's a great way to go. Okay, so here's where we are in the universe. He doesn't sort of assume that you've read it or assume knowledge. He sets it up really nicely, so you can just jump straight in.
Okay. So I have to always try and avoid spoilers as best I can, especially because I want to read half of these books. But
Yeah,
so we've got so I think who was I speaking to about a book? Okay, the Coda series. Right. So we've got some
yeah.
information. So are we let's start with the Enterprise. We'll start with so Picard's captain, correct?
Can't still captain. Yeah,
Is Worf the first officer?
Worf's first officer.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So I think of
and you've got Beverly Crusher as chief medical officer still, and you've got Geordie as chief engineer.
right. Okay, so it's not a huge.
And then
Are there some new?
not huge, but then
Yeah. So do we have some new
yeah,
characters? Are there? I suppose I would say are there? If we're going to break it into two parts of new characters that maybe, if I read Coda, I'll be like, okay, I've seen this character appear already. Or are there new characters that are like new, dropped in for this book or this book series?
so there are a couple who are sort of new, a couple who you sort of might, but one of the things that I loved about the relaunch novels is they made these new characters and then dumped them in
Yeah.
and gave them personalities, and so by the time you get to Coda, like you'll know who these people are.
Mm.
Like you've got the new like tactical officer on the Enterprise. You think Miranda Kadohata, she's fantastic sort of character, and her and Worf obviously get on quite well as they sort of develop their relationship and things like that. And then you've got characters like Teresa Chen, who's the Enterprise's first contact officer,
Oh, right.
who's responsible for meeting new civilizations, but she's half human, half Vulcan.
Okay.
But whereas Spock went, I'm going full Vulcan, she's going full human. And you've got someone who's very emotional as a result, but is mega excited about meeting all these new species and things like that. So she's a great character who's dumped in as well,
Nice.
and you really get to know them.
Yeah. And one of the questions, because I mean, you said it was David Mack, right? That's written this series, and he wrote all three. Yeah, it's like start to
Yeah,
finish. Yeah, because I know like Coda was divided
yeah,
between three different authors, and it's always interesting. Everyone's kind of got their style, and it's nice. I think when, especially if it's a series, there's nothing worse than being like book one loved it, and then book two different author, and you're like,
yeah,
just it just doesn't. It's just not my style, or it just doesn't fit my vibe. So I do like the idea that if I read the first one and I'm like, oh, really good, I'm going to be quietly confident for the next two. You know what I mean? I'm like, hopefully stick the landing.
yeah,
Um, One of the things I'm always interested in is how well they capture the voice of the characters we already know. Um, because obviously I think sometimes like some things can cheat a little bit, right? Because I was thinking about the audiobook of Catherine Janeway that was recommended by Leah Sci-Fi. Um, and there are certain elements where I'm like, I'm not 100% sure if this is her voice, but because it's literally her voice because it's being read by Kate Mulgrew, I'm like, am I being kind of tricked into believing it maybe more than if I was just reading it? And I would think, I don't know, would Janeway have reacted in that way? I'm not 100% sure. But with these books, obviously, it's all in your head, right? So you're just reading their voices. But I guess the question is, do they feel not just like they capture their voice, but they also capture their voice, where they are now? Like Worf he's not the same Worf as he would have been on the Enterprise in TNG, because he's had a whole second part of his career kind of after that and then come back. Um, does it just feel like a natural progression for these people, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah, and David Mack captures them superbly, I'd say. And one of the things I really like, was I sort of sold it as Avengers Endgame. It's not all epic space battles and torpedoes all over the place and fire phasers. There are lots of really small moments that really sort of grow the characters. So Picard is probably the one whose character arc takes probably the most different course than you probably expect. So he's leading the Enterprise as they try and uncover what's happening with the Borg. But the Borg are coming out and they're coming to eradicate. And this is a very different Borg collective than we're used to. And Picard properly gets pessimistic about this. There's several moments where he's like, we are not going to win. We're going to die. And Worf has to step up, and Worf routinely sort of pushes the Enterprise through, where he's having to be there as a not just a Klingon, but the first officer supporting his captain while keeping the ship in shape. And he really explores him getting the balance with that. Yeah. But similarly, when Picard gets really depressed, it's a really natural progression of his character, because it uses his link with the Borg Collective. And there's quite a heartbreaking moment where I wouldn't say that it's a very minor spoiler, but he and Beverly Crusher are now married, and they're expecting their first child. And this is the Picard that we've seen, keep a distance, refuse to have relationships with his crew and everything like that. And he's almost sat there going, this is my fault. I let myself be happy. And the Borg are coming to take it all away. And that's why it sort of leads with that depression. But it's still Picard, and you can still see it being him. Yeah. And it is quite a natural character arc for him, I think. We see Riker on the Titan with his wife, Troy, and mirroring Picard quite happily. They're trying to conceive their first child and can't, because of the differences in biology and things like that. And there's really big character moments where Riker and Troy are trying to get along with that. And probably the one that's got the most freedom is Ezri as Captain of the Aventine, where she's a very young captain compared to everyone else around her. And trying to make sense of that and deal with that, despite the fact that she's one of the oldest ones there because of Dax.
Yeah.
So merging all those crews together is really well done.
Yeah, I think that's the one that would be maybe the most interesting to spend a bit of time with for me, maybe just because of how little, we got so little of Ezri, even in Deep Space Nine, right? It was just the tail end, and we got her, and then and now and she was sort of this, it was like an accident that I've ended up here. I'm not the person, I'm not ready for any of this kind of thing. So the idea of her being a captain, and now especially when it sounds like stakes get pretty high in this book. I think that's going to be very interesting compared to, Picard, even though, as you said, he's going to go on like not a dark turn, but like, this stages of depression and anxiety and things like that. You're kind of like, well, but he's Picard. We've seen him pull through before. We've seen him, he's faced the Borg down before. Okay, they're different, but he's done it in the past. He'll do it again. And but I don't know if I would go out and get a book just because like, oh, here's a book series about Ezri captaining this ship. Because I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I've got time for that. So I quite like the idea that there's snippets of of each, and I can at my leisure kind of go, oh,
Yeah.
well, now we're here. So that does sound interesting. Um, what's I haven't read any of the Titan books. What's Riker's crew like?
Oh, he's got so the Titan novels. I've not read many of them. I've read a few, but yeah, it's clearly he's got his obviously Deanna
Hmm.
sort of on the crew as well as his counselor and the diplomatic officer for the ship. Tuvok transferred from Voyager, so he's the tactical officer on Titan. So yeah, quite a good mix there. But one of the great things about the Titan series is the most diverse crew that you will find in Starfleet, with only about 15% being human.
Right. Okay.
So, like the chief medical officer is a carnivore. Yeah, he's a lizard.
Hmm.
Almost like a dinosaur who is there to like keep people feeling better, but is purely carnivorous. A sort of breed of predators. You've got the chief engineer is Ephrosion, which you might remember as the Federation president in Star Trek Six, with like the big
Yeah.
beard and things like that. But you've also got Haslar from the Deep Space Nine episode. She's the one who is in a real sort of low gravity world and
She's got
has to
like
have a wheelchair and things to move
that
around.
kind of weird suit.
That's right. She's got the
Yeah.
exoskeleton. Yeah, and she's on the crew as well. So there's a couple of familiar faces who sort of pop up, but it's a really diverse crew.
Yeah.
And the first officer is Christine Bale,
Right.
who is human sort of female, but really sort of great character. It's almost like there's a big call. Why if they're going to make it in a film, it's going to be Katie Sackhoff who plays
Right.
her, sort of
Yeah.
thing. Like she is like this quite tough, sort of straight down the line, sort of human. And there's also a security officer, not tactical officer, but a security officer who's an unjoined Trill as
All
well.
right. Nice.
But yeah, so a really diverse mix of people.
Which I think you've got to do if you're doing a book, right? Because the reason you got like the reason Picard's crew isn't that diverse is just because nobody wanted to, they can't get every actor to spend 6 hours in a makeup chair before shooting every
Right?
scene, right? Um, but
Yeah.
that's why I feel with the books, with the animation, you've got to go all out. Like, I want
And you
more
can.
aliens.
It's your film, but there's no budget. You can do anything you want.
Yeah. Yes. There's a book series I have read, the New Frontier ones, which is a sort of
Yeah.
similar vein, very peculiar mix on the crew, and then similarly, you've got a couple of, Shelby's the first officer, isn't she? So you've got a couple of like, oh, I recognize her, and the doctor is, I can't remember her name now, but she's the Vulcan doctor that we saw at
Sela.
yeah, that we saw a couple of times in
Yeah.
TNG, and so you're like, okay, there's some recognize, and and they deal with Admiral
Robert
Jellicoe
Leffler as
as
well,
well.
haven't you? As yeah,
Yeah. So I do like that. I like it when I kind of like, okay, we've got a little bit of this, but then we've also got so much freedom with these new characters because we don't have to keep a status quo. We don't have to, remember, oh, hold on, but this is set before this other show or movie or something, and we've got to make sure. I didn't know Tuvok was on the Titan. That's news to me.
yeah,
Lots of people now began.
yeah. He jumped across, and he's a great addition for it as well. Like, yeah, because he's one of those familiar characters you can anchor onto,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, there he is. And he has a good role in this as well.
It's funny because I'm developing a theory recently. I might have mentioned it to someone. I can't remember if I mentioned it on here or before or after recording. But I start to think maybe Tuvok is the greatest Vulcan in Star Trek and in Starfleet. And
Yeah,
everyone's like, Spock, obviously Spock, obviously Spock. And I'm like, well, I could get you on a technicality and go, no, Spock's the greatest half Vulcan. But I'm not even sure if that's true. But I just, I think where, Tuvok's, especially when you look at like the movies and you look at his time in Voyager, now on the Titan, he pops up everywhere. We've now got him in the Khan audio series as well. He's there. He's doing great things. And Spock is good, but Spock's not perfect. And I think, I think Spock did a couple of things that I think people forget and don't call him out for. Uh, like making Kirk forget when the android woman he was convinced was in love with him died, and he's just like, just very casually at the end of an episode, mind melds him and says, "Forget." I'm like, "What? Hold on."
We'll never mention this again. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Tuvok's a really interesting exemplar, isn't he? Because you've got T'Pol as well, but T'Pol's always quite emotional. I
Yeah.
think one of the hooks they were going to do for Enterprise was she was going to be like half Romulan or something like that. But yeah, if there'd been another
Yeah.
season. But I think you see Tuvok as a great example of like as a proper Vulcan who has his own sort of whims and stuff as well. He's got a friendship with Janeway. He won't really admit it, but yeah, there's a definite humanity there as well.
But what I love about it is there's no everything has to be justified as a Vulcan, whereas with
Yeah,
ones like Spock, you can always kind of be like, well, he's part human, so maybe it's that the human side coming through, or you mentioned like the T'Pol thing, maybe that, but you've got Savick that was half Romulan, I believe, I think, sometimes depending on where you read or what you watch. So
yeah,
again, you've
yeah.
kind of got fun justifications there, but I'm thinking when, like the fact that Vulcans can't lie, right? That's what we're told all the time. Vulcans can't lie. He was undercover in Voyager. Like that was his first mission was being undercover.
Just talking around the subject.
How do you do that? And then Janeway's got that great line um about the problem with logic is you can use it to sort of justify anything.
Just
And he
yeah,
absolutely does that. That's what he does. But I kind of think it's great. Like that explains so much about the Vulcan. Like I feel like looking at Tuvok, we learned so much about how the Vulcans can be where they are and do what they do and have made it so long in this galaxy with Klingons and Romulans and Andorians and everyone else around. If they're just these kind of talky, scientist guys who don't. Yeah, come on, guys. There's more going on there. We know it. We know it. Tuvok's
and
laying the
Tuvox
stone.
also that they don't have a few scientists. Yeah, they are soldiers and things like that as well. They are
Yeah.
tactical officers and undercover and everything. Yeah, he opens up the network a lot more.
Yes. So big Tuvok fan here. I didn't realize how much of a Tuvok fan I was until recently. But I'm like, oh yeah, and to the point that I was like, I like Riker. I might get the Titan book series. Yeah, people have said good things about
Yeah,
it. Sounds good. You told me Tuvok's in it. I'm like, Phew.
but having Tuvok on the bridge is like, here we go.
Yeah, that's just earned it quite a few
And
extra points for me. So I don't know about people listening. They're probably like, this guy, this Tuvok fanboy. Well, something about him. Something about him. I don't know what it is. Um, and actually one of my big I don't know if there's spoilers now for the audiobook, the Catherine Janeway audiobook, but she meets Tuvok early on in her career, and I think he's like a
yeah,
lieutenant, and then later she's now a captain and he's a lieutenant commander. I'm thinking, what's this guy got to do to get promoted? This is crazy. He's
doesn't he pick her up for something as well when
yeah,
they first meet? Like
he
she
absolutely
doesn't follow through on something. He's like, oi,
yeah yeah. In fact, she messes up the first meeting, and she's just an ensign,
Yeah,
and then later she's she gets from ensign to captain in the time he gets from
the time he's
lieutenant to lieutenant
promoted.
commander.
Yeah, that's why he took the mission on the Marquis. He's had enough at that point. He's like, right, what do I need to do?
And it's just and every
I'll take down the entire Marquis. Is that good enough?
yeah.
Yeah.
And every time I go through all these things, it just makes me feel more and more sorry for Harry Kim because I'm like, she's just
There's a reason.
jumping ranks and speeding through them, and these other people they've just got to be stuck where they are for eternity.
Well, she gets straight back to the Alpha Quadrant, doesn't she? And gets her Admiralty.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm amazed they didn't send it
like
through
Harry,
as soon as they could send transmissions. Like, oh,
there's a proviso. You must not promote Harry Kim.
yeah.
Done. Yeah.
She goes, we actually managed to. There's like we got this message from a Romulan before he passed away. It got sent, and from the moment we heard that,
Yeah.
we had your Admiral Pips ready. It's like unbelievable.
there's always that moment in Endgame, isn't there, where you finally see Harry as a captain, and there's always that moment there with Jane where he goes, "Absolutely not. We're going back to when he's an ensign. Like,
Kind of take,
we're keeping him at that rank now."
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what finally got her to break like all the temporal accords and all the,
temporal Cold Wars.
she's
Yeah,
like, oh no, that's it. Sorry, I don't mind. Don't have the Tuvok's lost his mind. I was upset about that, but Harry as a
yeah.
captain, are
Seven's
we
dead.
sure?
Chakotay's dead. The line has been crossed. This far, no further. Back we go.
Oh, excellent. So back on topic of your book, but I love the detours. They're always good.
Yeah,
So okay, how quickly do the stories intersect between? Because I'm assuming the 3 different missions are being undertaken are all revolving around the
they
same
they
issue. Like,
they do intertwine.
yeah,
Yeah.
does that happen quite early on, or is that kind of a book 3 type thing, or?
No, so there is a a, a, a fourth crew you're following as well that sort of does tie it all together. And again, it's a very minor spoiler, but you'll find it in the first 100 pages of the
Right,
first novel. So you're also following the crew of the NX-02 Columbia.
right,
So there's a bit of an Enterprise thing as there as well, and that obviously ties into why Esri is investigating the Columbia in the Gamma Quadrant. The big mystery about how it got there,
right, okay.
and so Picard's investigating the the Borg just appearing in the middle of Federation space, slipping past all the defenses, and nobody knows why. Esri's gone to the Gamma Quadrant because, well, the Columbia somehow managed to traverse,
Mm,
thousands of light years, and nobody really knows why. So maybe it's linked. And then the Titans obviously picked up something deep in the sort of the Beta Quadrant and gone, well, that sounds like that subspace tunnel, that the Borg are using. So perhaps they're all there. And around about, certainly by the time you get to the third book, they're all together.
yeah,
Um, the Aventine comes back quite quickly and syncs up with the Enterprise, so they're up there together quite quickly. And then by the time you get to the third book, all 3 crews are together, and you sort of understand then at which point, how the NX-02's sort of adventures are tied into it quite nicely as
nice.
well. So it all sort of syncs up. When I say Avengers Endgame, like everyone's in it. And actually, the Excalibur that we spoke about earlier, that makes an appearance as well. So there's a bit of New Frontier in there as well, and
Oh,
you see Voyager, all that sort of stuff.
I mean, it 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 sounds like it would be impossible for them to make, as a show.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, it's got to be a movie, and it is your Avengers Endgame movie. But you got to do it, and when you say the Excalibur's there, there's a comms message with it, one of the things I really love about it, you're following all these crews, but every so often there are little segues as
Mm,
well, and it ties into so what else is happening, during this Borg invasion, and there's these great points where you've got, like a Federation starship that's just trying to stop, a Federation world being destroyed, and it's that one ship on its own trying to do its best, and you've got the Federation president trying to cohere everything behind the scenes. They do little segues. You see Martok, trying to get the Klingon Empire to help. You've also got the USS Da Vinci from the Corps of Engineers novels that makes a small appearance. But it really takes those things of like, we're focusing on these crews. These are our big ones. But there's lots of little things going on around the place that you really need to focus on as well. And those are the real sort of
mm,
personal stories that, in a way, really make the Borg scary again because it is this just unstoppable juggernaut.
right.
And so we'll see Voyager leading up the almost like the Federation's last stand fleet, and it has a proper moment of like, we might not be prepared for this.
Yeah.
Like as Voyager is like the Borg experts in the Federation, and it's suddenly becoming this is big. Like we are at our last stand moment.
That's really interesting because I think when we were talking, I can't even remember who it was now, but we were talking about like Voyager and how in the first episode, kind of, when they get stranded 70,000 light years from home, we don't really know any of them. And it's kind of
Yeah,
hard to, and obviously it's also like impossible for us to comprehend, being that far away and needing to take, 70 years to get home kind of thing. But
yeah,
especially I remember when I first saw it and I was much younger, and it was like, yeah, okay. So go home then. Like you're gonna go home? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, that sounds good. And it's not like, but think about their families, think about their friends, think about the relationship, because we just didn't really know anyone well enough. And obviously,
yeah,
because it's got to be a a dynamic TV show, we don't have time to sit with each of these characters and learn about their fiance and their family and their dog and their this and that. But that's the nice thing with books is you can take your time. Um,
you can
and
really dig in.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I think having that opportunity to kind of be like, we're not talking about whether or not the Enterprise is going to be destroyed. Like, obviously we are, but what's the bigger picture? I was going to say globally. It's not globally. It's multiple globes.
yeah.
It's like, what's the bigger picture of if they don't stop this, what's happening to all the other planets, all the other civilizations, everybody else? Um, so to get those little reminders, yeah, it is good, isn't it? Because it's sort of like, oh, hold on, there's more going on. There's more
And
going
there's
on.
some and there's some proper like very much like yeah, again a very minor spoiler for part of the book. There's a scene I just love where it's this Federation ship that's desperately trying to do its best, and it comes up with this plan that's a complete suicide mission. And you've got I think it's the first officer. The captain's dead, like the bridge is in flames around them, and they're at the thing going, "This, you've got to press the button." And she has this thing about you've only got to be brave for a minute. And presses the button, and that's it. And it's that it really sort of brings it all to life of like all these people who are desperately just trying to do their
Yeah.
best. And it even cuts back to people on the planets that have been attacked by the Borg, looking up and just going, not even assimilating, they're just pulverizing us. Like it really brings it to life. You've got the Federation president, desperately trying to get people onto the borders, and every plan they come up with, just falls apart. And like the big thing that they've got, and it really is, it's not the ticking time bomb, is the Enterprise is one of the few ships that stands a chance because it's been given the transphasic torpedoes from Voyager Endgame, that sort of came back. And the whole time it's like the Borg will adapt to this, and once that happens, there's nothing else we've got.
Yeah.
And so it's all that time of like, is this engagement going to be when they adapt or not?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, imagine that, isn't it? Fine. Just one more shot. Just one more shot. Oh, that's the one they adapted. Oh dear.
Yeah.
I did want to ask a couple of questions about the Borg. So they're different in the sense like their objective is different.
Mm.
Is that like the only change? So they're just the Borg we know, but it's destroy, not assimilate? Or do the Borg feel different just in general, like in everything they're doing?
They're scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the big things we had, I love the Borg in Q Who. I love the Borg in sort of First Contact, sort of up until the point we get the Queen, and I kind of I kind of have that moment of like, okay, it's more fun having them as like this sort of faceless thing that you can't quite understand. And the Borg Queen's had some fantastic episodes, and I kind of get why they brought her in as like a face of the Borg and things like that. But it's also that point where I kind of preferred it when it was just the Borg and it was the collective. Um, the Borg are different because they're coming to eradicate, but it's also a case of, again, because there's no budget, like when they invade, there's a mission, there's a part of the book where they have to go onto a Borg ship to try and grab some technology, and the ship itself starts fighting back. Like the Borg ship, the tendrils, assimilation tubules start coming out of the walls. The ship rearranges itself as you go through. Like the Borg are just faceless, and they're coming towards you, sort of thing. And um, and you see Starfleet, but you see Starfleet adapting to it as well. So instead of phasers, they start issuing out melee weapons like Worf's there with his bat'leth on the bridge, like we are holding the line here, sort of thing. But they're getting out the TR-116s, from the DS9 episode Field of Fire, so using kinetic weapons as opposed to phasers and things like that, because the Borg will have more trouble adapting to it. They're using grenades and things like that. So, and part of it as well is that there's now no stun setting. So while and there's moments where like they're trying to get into the Borg ship is reassembling itself around them. There's assimilation tubes coming out of the wall, and if there's friendly fire is a real thing that they're all thinking about as they're trying to sort of fight their way through. and sometimes it goes wrong. And I mean, one of the big selling points of Destiny as well, and again, very minor spoiler, for, for an 18-year-old novel series, is that this is a Borg origin story as well, and it's a really nicely done one. So everything ties it, and as you sort of go through, you sort of understand the Borg's motivations a lot more as well.
So I mean, okay, how do I phrase this? So do you feel like this makes the book well, because I know what you mean when you're talking about kind of the introduction of the Queen, and it feels like when the Borg first appeared, they were really scary, right? Because they were just this unstoppable force. And then the more we got to see the Borg, and the more we knew the Borg, and the more encounters we had with the Borg, the less scary they became. And it was kind of one of the things where, like, the characters will tell us how scary they are, because it's like, oh, it's the Borg, oh no, quick, get out of there. But we're watching it and being like, it's the Borg, you'll be fine. You guys have dealt with this before. And I think the Queen ironically humanizes the Borg, because immediately we can be like, oh, like a beehive, they have a queen and the queen is in control, and so that's good though, because now if we kill the queen, we've got cut off the head kind of thing. It just suddenly made it a bit more manageable almost. Whereas if you're just like, because I think the big question of how did it start is really fascinating, right? You're like, how did it just, because once it's a massive collective, and and you're like, oh well, they've got technology from all these different races, and they've taken, they've adapted over time as they've encountered different species and so on and so forth. Like, that all makes sense when they're a big collective. But you're like, but what when there was just one or two of them? How did that start? And it's kind of that, the fact that you can't work it out. You're like, well, I just don't know how that would begin. I don't know. And they're just a swarm, like locusts coming through, and you're just like, even if we stop this swarm of locusts, we've not eradicated all the locusts in the world, right? There's more out there. So what happens when another bigger swarm comes by? Are we going to be, oh, and by the way, they're all linked, so whatever we did to get rid of this group, that's not going to work another time. Like, that was really scary, because you could kind of in your mind make it even worse, and then it kind of got a bit softened almost, because we just had so much of it in Voyager, I suppose. I know everybody, loves Voyager. I'm not gonna.
I think that's the problem. And when you've got Voyager sort of taking on a single Borg cube and holding its own, and yes, there's like Voyager got its technology and all that sort of stuff. It's like, suddenly they're not that big a threat. It's like, oh well, we just got to buy time while the Borg, while Janeway like gets onto the Borg cube and infiltrates it. But Voyager will hold its own during that time. Whereas Warp 359 was over in like 2 minutes, and every Federation ship was gone. And Destiny sort of reclaims them from that. It does I think it does a great service to Voyager by saying, we've got all this kit, we've got all these new ships that were designed to fight the Borg and can hold their own. And we've got the new transphasic torpedoes and things, but you're not dealing with a single Borg cube. You're dealing with all of the Borg cubes. Like, they are now coming, and you always get the phrase like, the impression like Warp 359, first contact was the Borg just doing a little probing run. Like, thousands of Starfleet officers, killed, changed the Federation forever. And now it's like the Borg just said, we've had enough. Humanity is too big of a problem now. You've annoyed us for the last time. We're wiping you out. The universe is better off without you. And it is just a swarm.
Yeah.
The locust analogy is pretty apt. Yeah.
I mean, I want to ask a question, but I'm not going to ask, because I just feel it will ruin the books for me if I ask. So I'm going to. I'm not going to. I'm just kind of. I suppose I'm curious to know. I don't know if I can ask it. I kind of want to know if. So you elevate the stakes of the Borg once again. The Borg are scary again. Mm-hmm. When the books finish, are the Borg still scary? And you see why I don't want to ask the question? No, because
I fully get it.
Right.
So the one thing I will say is that, just to really piss off half the planet. Like, this is not Star Wars. This is Star Trek. And I think this isn't the case of, oh, we're going to get everyone in the Alpha Quadrant to stand up and face the Borg. This is going to be an epic space battle. That we could not afford the budget in a movie for, but this is Star Trek, and the emphasis is, how do we solve this problem? How do we stop this invasion without it turning into a massive fight?
Right.
How do we work it through? How do we solve it? How do we manage this problem? And I think it's actually a pretty elegant solution that they come up with.
Right.
And
okay.
As you sort of find out the origins of the Borg, there's a natural progression to lead up to how they actually get out of this situation in the first place.
Yeah.
But it is a pretty dark moment before you get there. Right. And you've got towards the end of book 3, no surprises to anyone, the Federation's mounting its last stand, and you've got 3 Starfleet ships, desperately trying to just solve this problem, and working it through in a sort of proper Hail Mary. What can we do to make this work?
Right.
And it is pretty gripping.
Okay. I like that it says, and they worked out what the problem is, and they said, "I'm sorry," and the Borg said, "Okay, fine. You've learnt your lesson. No problem."
Yeah.
Or they have to go back in
We're
time.
really sorry about Janeway.
Yeah. Sorry, we won't ever send anyone to the Delta Quadrant again. It was not our fault.
Yeah. Oh, that virus she introduced, we're really sorry about that. No, it doesn't quite end up like that.
Because we had a chance to introduce a virus once before, and we didn't. We just taught him to be an individual, and that also was a problem. We understand that also caused a big problem, but it was a different problem. That's not our fault. Yes.
But the more you sort of learn, and they bring up so many of the Borg lore and sort of say, the Omega molecule, why the Borg love it so much, that's explained in it 100% of it's a proper plot point from this one Voyager episode of this is why they like it, this is why the Borg are obsessed with it, and it's used to a pretty gratifying conclusion.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I'm happy, but I'm also annoyed because
on Amazon.
Yeah, I really do want to read these now. This is I'm sorry for shares, because I'm absolutely going to pause full circle, I think, and just going to read these first, and then I'll come back to it. But
what I'll say is that Full Circle, the events of Full Circle, and the thing I'll say with Destiny as well, is that you spoke about the freedom of the books as well. And when this came out, so these were published in 2008. Nemesis has happened, no plans for new movies, besides Star Trek 2009, but different sort of timeline. There's no TV series on the horizon. The sandbox was wide open, and Destiny is when they probably hammered at home of the sandbox is open. Not everyone's going to survive. Not all ships are going to come out of this without a scratch. The universe doesn't have to look the same at the end of the novel as it did at the end of every episode of Next Generation, Voyager, blah blah blah. So everything is wide open for us, and Destiny changes the Star Trek universe fairly spectacularly. And a large part of the Full Circle novels, Voyager going back to the Delta Quadrant, is to find out what has happened to the Borg at the end of this series of novels.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm absolutely going to have to pause reading that then, because I've got to go and read these books.
Yeah.
I'm literally just Destiny. Yeah.
Destiny. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh.
I mean, I've read the Voyager relaunch novels as well, so the Full Circle ones, and Destiny I think works really well as a setup for it.
I think is that Star Trek Destiny book trilogy in one volume. Is that all 3 collected into one book?
There's an omnibus.
Oh,
there's an omnibus. Yeah.
Yeah, it's $9.99 on eBay. I could get that. I could just buy that now.
Absolutely. I think so. I'm obviously massively biased, but I think it is one of the greatest sort of series sort of out there. And so when I realised I was doing this, so I think I first read it in 2012, and I blitzed through it, all 3 novels in a week, sort of in prep for this, and loved every moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I've literally just found it now. It's I can justify spending that. So all right. Well, I might have to get you back on for a follow-up when I do a Or
Oh,
when I do a
absolutely.
review
Once you've
episode.
read it,
Yeah,
you're,
yeah.
what was that?
Oh, man, looks good. Okay, right. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for making me spend money.
But just wasting your money.
But
Yeah.
no, I appreciate that. Of course, what's interesting is we always ask the guests as well if they'd like a recommendation about anything. You have referenced so many different books and elements of stuff, so I will be incredibly surprised if there is anything you need a recommendation about. But I have to ask: is there anything the audience could recommend to you?
But one of the things that I'm really interested in is Star Trek RPGs and things like
Right?
that. Because when I say interested, it's not something I really know about or have experience or anything like that. But I'm aware that there are some out there,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'd be quite keen to understand more about that. What are the Star Trek RPGs? I think it was one Star Trek Adventures.
Yes.
Like, how's it set up? How does it work? What's that like? I'd be quite interested in that.
Okay. Well, and you've reminded me that I need to reach out to them again and book them in. But there's a podcast called Star Trek. It's not Star Trek Tempest. It's Tempest, and then it's I'm trying to think
Okay.
how they've done it to get around. They're on about 4 seasons now. They do an actual play of Star Trek Adventures, but it's also kind of like a mix of an audio play and an actual play. There's a lot of sound design. There's a lot of they really kind of go all in on the stories. It's set in between the periods of Kirk and Picard, and by now things have
Oh, the Lost Hero.
happened that means it would have changed. Talking of the Borg, they encounter the Borg at a certain point, so now they've already encountered them, but it's really good. But also they were learning, particularly in the first season, they were learning the system, so there's a lot of explanation as to like
Yeah.
what they're doing, but it's also not super rules heavy. It's quite entertaining as well. But that's yes. So Star Trek Adventures.
Star Trek Tempest.
Yes. And
I'll check that out.
I started playing Star Trek Adventures during the COVID lockdown. That was something I tried to do to get some time with some friends and be like, look, I'll put on this game for you. And as soon as we were all allowed to go back outside, none of them wanted to play anymore. So that's
Priorities.
yeah. But okay. But also, if anybody knows any others, please let us know, because I would also be very interested to know more about some of these things. Yeah, I think there's even Modiphius that do the Star Trek Adventures, because as I said, it's hard to get people together. They even do some books that are like a solo campaign. You can play by yourself using the book.
Really?
Yeah, so that might be something to look into. I don't know. Anyway,
That'll be my money disappearing down the
yes.
drain. That.
But if somebody would like to come
Fair's
on
fair.
and recommend that to us, and I can do a whole episode on it, that would be appreciated as well. So very good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate the recommendation. Thank you, everybody, for listening and then sending over those wonderful recommendations we've just asked for. Normally, I plug where can people find you on social media, and where can they? Apparently, they have to go and hunt down UK Space Command. And
Yeah,
I wouldn't
just join.
yeah,
It'll be great.
I maybe wouldn't recommend you to go hunting them down. That's probably not going to be good for you. But
It might not end well. No, there's a lot of fences and things in between. But the UK Space Command is a joint thing. So there are civil service posts available as well. So you've got people who are like really interested in space and like doing it for a bit of a day job. It is a military organisation, but you don't have to be in the military. And there's things like engagement that you need to do. There's things like legal advice. There's things like policy advice and things like that. So there are civil service posts available, and just like any sort of command, there's things like human resources. There's things like we need the IT system to be looked at as well. There are loads of jobs out there that people can have a look at.
well, there you go,
I
guys.
would, if I could have a shout, I've got a episode of the Leadership Multiverse coming out as well.
Right.
That's a podcast run by the brilliant Ellen Daniels and Andrew Chamberlain, and they talk about sci-fi leaders each week. I'm doing one on AI, so that will come out by the time of recording.
Yeah.
But the Leadership Multiverse is one you can hear me witter on about stuff as well.
Okay. So if you enjoyed listening to Sam's beautiful voice, if you've got this far and what's wrong with Jason's voice, clearly I've lost my voice. That should be evident to anyone who normally listens to the show. But if you're just here for Sam, I don't normally sound like this. But if you want to hear his voice, you can go over and listen to that podcast. So that will be nice. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you everyone for listening. I will be back next week with another guest, another Trekommendation, and hopefully a better voice.